Hey, Kaza Family, Kaza Investor Network here with another one of your flippity files. Here on one of the most important days in any construction project is when trades are midway or nearing completion of installing things like plumbing, electric, and HVAC in your houses. It is critical to come while that work is being done and make sure everything is going in as and where you expect it and per your plan, or per the plan that you're going to make up kind of while you're doing it, depending on what kind of construction you're doing. A lot of times in renovations you don't have a really good plan because you're working with things that already exist. A lot of new construction going on in this particular house here, so we had at least a pretty good idea when we started what the plan was for the location of things. But it's always critical to come and double check before you get to what's called close-in, where you get to drywall and cover up all this stuff. So I'm here in a front office room that's going to have a ceiling fan with a light in it inside here, so we want to make sure that those are the right fixtures in the right locations. And of course, anything that you can power gets a switch, so you also need to double check how many and where and what gets controlled and what circuits go where. Again, your electricians and plumbers and HVAC folks will do 99% of the work. They should know what they're doing and they'll get most of these things right, but you may want something different than the standard or something different that gets done at the last job. So to make sure you're getting what you are expecting, you need to come and check these things out. So I can give you a couple of specific examples of some things that we had to do here to modify what was done to make it what we needed. For instance, down here in the basement, we have a trunk line for the HVAC service. This is the supply line that feeds this basement. And as you can see, we already have a beam here running through the center of this basement. And then we've added the trunk line along the beam, and all of that then gets boxed in. When all that gets boxed in, we add at least 3/4 to an inch or so worth of framing underneath it and drywall on top of that. So boxes get bigger than the pipes and ducts behind them, and the ceiling gets lower even than what you see here in the raw uncovered state, which means here in the basement my ceiling height's going to get lower, and that's kind of a critical thing in a basement that's already not got a really high ceiling. So my issue is that, if you can see, plumber did a great job of keeping the drain line tight to the beam so that when we go to box it in, it won't need to be any lower than that beam, which we can't move. But my HVAC guy used a standard size square duct. That meant that the duct comes below the height of the beam. That's no good. So when we frame that in and drywall it, now I'm going to have a larger duct or larger bulkhead than I need because of this square duct. The solution is to use a non-standard rectangular duct. They have to be a certain size, a certain number of square inches to move the amount of air that you need. But there's no rule that says that it has to be square. It can be rectangular. So this duct is going to have to come out, be replaced with a shorter but wider rectangular duct that will be tighter to the ceiling and will mean that I won't lose as much of my ceiling height at the bulkhead that's got to be built around it. It's going to come out a little bit wider, and my bulkhead's going to be a few inches wider, but wider doesn't bother me. Lost ceiling height is what bothers me. So making sure that that goes in properly is just a thing that you have to catch. It's a condition that when a guy does the normal thing, the regular thing that they do in every other house, doesn't work in my house that's got a lower basement and I'm really concerned about ceiling height. It's just a thing that you have to check. In the basement, we're believers and you really can't have too much light. So I think in this particular basement we're standing in, we'll probably get 6 lights, I believe, in this side of the basement, 6 lights in this side. 4 more recess cans will go in that end of the basement over there. Those are the kind of things that, as far as the light pattern and how wide you want them spread and where you want them spaced, is something that, again, the electricians will get pretty well correct most of the time, but you really need to double check and make sure those lights are going in where you want them based on what you know you want your lighting package and layout to look like. So comes down to just the placement of all of these things. Most of this stuff can be moved, even though things are installed and ducted and in place and strapped down and looks like they're pretty permanent. They're not. If something's been put in a place that you don't want it, you need to demand to your contractor that they move it, and then you can negotiate and discuss whether or not that got relayed in the beginning and whether or not it's an extra to go back and change a thing. Again, it just kind of depends on your plan and what you knew you could plan for, but that's also why you have to plan for stuff to come up. That's why we have contingency budgets to cover these kind of things. I'll give you another example up here with HVAC. That's an item that's going to need to change. This is our dining room in this house. This is the return duct for the HVAC. We put it in the most logical place we could think of, but the actual grills for the HVAC got put in here on the front side. That will be facing towards my kitchen. Got a couple problems with that. One, the grill has a certain size. It has to be a certain square footage to accept a standard grill. And as you can see, that pokes out on the side. And that means when this gets boxed out, it's going to be bigger than it needs to be. Secondly, where that's located, that kind of means you can't do anything with this space here in this dining room, and we're thinking about possibly putting in maybe a built-in buffet or a butler's pantry or something along this wall. That grill's going to be in that way, and there's absolutely no reason why it can't go on this side of the return duct. So that's what we're going to have them do. We're going to have to take these boxes off, move them over here to the side, so when this gets boxed in, the box will be a little bit smaller, and it frees up our ability to do something with that space, plus just makes the box the smallest it can be, and something like that just takes up dead space. You always want it to be as small as it can be. Let's take a look at an example maybe on the top floor of a thing that you got to look out for. And again, you're checking, walking through with your electrician, making sure that switches are where they're supposed to be, making sure that things are three-way switches. If you have lights above stairs, you want to be able to turn them off at the top and the bottom. That's fairly obvious, but don't leave those things to chance. Go through it with your electrician, go through a plan, think about it, walk through a house by yourself for a while, think about how you'd want to live in it, and decide how you want switches to lay out. They can do just about anything, and it's all much easier to do now when everything's wide open, also much, much less expensive than figuring it out later. I'm upstairs now in a master bathroom. Our plan originally in this area here that gets the vanities for a his and her vanity set was to have a pantry somewhere. Our plumber and electrician made a few decisions for us, though. One of our thoughts was to have it here on the left-hand side as you come in the door and just kind of tuck a little pantry there on the left and have the two-bowl sink here. Well, that pantry now area on the left-hand side has been occupied by the supply lines and drain line for the plumbing and the switches inside the door for the lights. That's actually okay, because in thinking about it and looking at it, that's really the logical place for the light switch. That's not a bad place for the drain and supply lines for the sink, and we can either move the pantry over to the right side, or we can set this up where we do like a wall cabinet type of pantry that kind of stacks in the middle, and that looks nice and provides some separation from the two bowls so there's no fighting over countertop space. We'll figure that out, but if we're going to decide to move it, now is the time to move it. We did make a change over here, for instance, from a corner tub to a freestanding soaker tub. That means those water supply lines are going to have to move over into that far corner over there, because where they are right now is not right. It's going to block to the door to the water closet. So that kind of thing's got to move. Way cheaper to do that now than after things start arriving and things start getting covered up. And you certainly want to get to it and make sure everybody knows it's got to get done well before you get to, say, tile, when other guys are working in here, and it gets much, much harder to make those kind of decisions. So critical things that you really don't want to leave to your trades to decide on for themselves. You should be walking through your houses with the trades, with your contractor, with your general contractor, even if you think they know what they're doing. You are the investor, you are the one selling this house. You need to make sure that it's as good as it can be. So you got to make sure that these things are the way you want them. Walk through the houses every day if you need to while this work is being done, while the trades are in the house. You really can't be in your house too much at this point, checking things out. You're going to make a little bit of a minor pest out of yourself, but it'll keep you from ending up with a finished house with some stuff that just doesn't make sense and hurt your value. So make a little bit of a pest out of yourself, get in here, play around, think about how you would be living in this house and what's going to make the most sense to anyone who's looking at your house and shopping it when you go to sell. And you'll be able to make better decisions and end up with a better house. And that's the goal. So do the right thing. Good luck. Have fun. If you need us, come find us on causinvestornetwork.com. Hit us up, as always, at any time with any questions or just a chat, and we will see you next time. Thanks.